What's up, YouTube? Welcome to another episode of The Extra Point. As always, I am your host, Phil Ruskin, joined by my co-host, Kendall VanDerBilt. We are going to take you through a continuing series of the best and worst picks from a Dynasty Superflex Startup draft. In our last video, we went through rounds 1, 2, and 3. Today, we are going to go through rounds 4, 5, and 6. Kendall, why don't you, really quickly, we have sourced all of this information from 7 different sites: the Fantasy Footballers, Football Guys, Fantasy Pros, 4for4, Dynasty Data Lab, Sleeper, and Keep Trade Cut. I made a quick algorithm or formula. It's probably the easier way to say it. And I averaged all 7 of those out, and that is where this information is coming from. So, Kendall, let's start in round 4. Give us let's start with the positive. Let's get the best value pick in round 4. Starting with Bo Nix, Ken Walker, Garrett Wilson, Brock Purdy, Dak Prescott. At the 406, Carnell Tate, Rashee Rice, warning signs, Jordan Love, Ladd McConkey, Tyler Warren, Devonta Smith, and T. Higgins. That is the 4th round in terms of ADP. I'm guessing Mr. Rice is not your best value of the round 4 startup draft. So why don't you tell us who is?
Yeah, you guessed correct there. We'll avoid that for another show. It's got a very different tone to it, right? We'll stay in the competitive space here. Get too easy to stomp on him a little bit. So when I look at, I like this round a lot. By the way, I've been advocating. I love my mid-round quarterback. So immediately when I went to go analyze this for the show, I immediately looked at a couple of the quarterbacks, but this is the magic round where I've got a guy here that I've believed in the talent ever since he was drafted, and I think he gets to fully explode. And it's ironic that you mentioned Rashee Rice because he's on the same team, and I think this only helps him catch a few more passes and get all the red zone work. Kenneth Walker, for me, is just a smash in round 4. In a lot of my more competitive mocks that we've done, I see him pretty consistently in the mid-3rd. And so I think that's where he belongs. You know, I guess it's a little bit of a projection, but me and you have talked about this before where we always presume health. And Kenneth Walker has been marred by some of those injuries and kind of mars his expectations. But if he's healthy and utilized correctly, like I think he will, I see almost insta top 5 upside. I'm almost projecting him there. So I like him, and I'm going to presume health for a while. I think they've got a good backup that's going to spell him from time to time, too. I think that's a great later round pick. But sign me up for Kenneth Walker. I think double-digit touchdowns are pretty much a shoe-in for him. And he could catch 50, 60 passes without trying very hard on that team. And, love that pick.
Agreed. I think the only thing I will add on top of that is exactly how you just finished that with the take about the pass-catching upside. Mahomes coming off the ACL, how mobile is he going to be this first month of the season? Is he even going to be there for the entirety of the first month of the season and start week 1? I think he will be, but TBD on that. But my point in saying that is just if he's not as mobile as he was last season, I think he looks to Walker a little bit more, and we don't know what's happening with Rashee Rice. So I think Walker gets off to a fast start, both in the touchdown upside and in the pass catching, until Mahomes is fully rehabbed in that second month of the season, ready to go. Smash pick in a dynasty at 25 years old. My best of round 4 it's my boy, Kendall. I know you saw the show sheet. There was no surprise who it would be. It's a player that I've liked since he has come out of college. It's a player I have been on since, and I remain on. And I don't care where A.J. Brown goes because Devonta Smith is going to be an Eagle. And Devonta Smith is my best value there in round 4. I just took Devonta Smith in a startup draft in round 6. And I think it's because Sleeper's ADP is slow to catch up, and he was just so buried and people weren't thinking. So the fact that I was able to wait, and I almost traded up in round 5 to get him. And I was at that 5-6 turn. So I was like, I think I can wait, 4 more, 8 more picks, whatever it was. I got him in the 6th, and it feels like an incredible value. So even to get him in the 4th, I'm very happy. And here's why I'm excited for Devonta Smith in the 4th. He's going to be the number 1 on his team here very soon. But more importantly, he is a player who's not going to be and does not have to be the wide receiver 1 for your team. So if you can go start your draft with, a Jamar Chase, an AJ Brown, an Amon-Ra St. Brown, not the player I would start with in the first round. a Malik Neighbors, or you want to start with, a Gibbs or a Bijan and then come back and grab a receiver in round 2, to leave a draft with a Jamar Chase and a Devonta Smith, to me, just seems like a cheat code right now, because you have 2 number ones in 2 very high-powered offenses that we like. So give me Devonta Smith at the back of the 4th. I will say this is the last little caveat. Do it sooner than later if you're in a startup draft, or you can't really trade for him because people know that the trade is coming. But I do think if you're in a startup draft right now, go get Devonta Smith soon, because as soon as the trade officially happens, the casuals who are getting into Dynasty for the first time, that ADP will start to rise.
Yeah, love him.
I always want to be positive, but we have to do a little bit of negative, and it's not negative in the 4th round. There's still great players here. So I want to just say this as a caveat. We're not saying that these are bad picks. I said this on the last video that we did in rounds 1 through 3. There are no bad first round picks. I think what Kendall and I are saying here is, when we say the worst pick is, there's maybe some better value that you could be getting. So please don't feel, if you've picked these players in round 4, 5, 6, the video that we're doing tonight, you're like, oh my God, I burned a pick and lit it on fire. You didn't. There just might be better value. So Kendall, give me somebody in round 4 who's our quote unquote worst pick, but maybe what we're saying is he's maybe just not the best value in that range here in the 4th.
Yeah, that's a good preface for this pick in general, because I think he's been underrated for a little while right now. Talking, of course, about Dak Prescott in this round. The reason I think he's probably the worst pick you can make in this round is just simply he's very productive, but the team isn't always going to be perfect. I think things kind of come and go. We don't know if we think Pickens is probably going to go, could be a little bit weird, but that offense has been fantastic. It just doesn't always have to be. And when it's fantastic, he's not, top 3 crazy. He's just usually in like that solid QB1 range. But for me, it's that he's 32, which isn't crazy old, but in that same round, okay, you can grab Purdy, who's about 6-ish years younger, on a 49ers offense that I can't remember the last time the 49ers were a bad team. And he's also got some legs. I think Purdy just rushed for like 5 touchdowns the other season. So, the fact that you're getting some legs and some athleticism on a great offense, he's younger. And then you look at, you've got Jordan Love over there, and you've got an NFC North that's just stacked, and you need to score 35 points to win a game. He's got deep weapons. And when the legs fall off of Josh Jacobs, I think the rush rate is going to, return to league average. And then all of a sudden the passing volume is going to go back up. He was QB5 in his first full season, so I think he probably regresses to the mean. So Dak is just not a standout pick when you look at the other players you could be taking in that range, where if you take Dak, if you're playing Dynasty, and we value players in a pretty small 2-3 year window, but at quarterback, we know that the trade market is kind of a nightmare for quarterback. It's just weird. It's hard to get a good deal done. Usually you have to overpay, or something has to get tricky. I just like that if I go with Purdy or Love over Dak, I have half a decade that I don't have to worry about it. And when the time comes, I think you're going to know why it was a slightly worse pick than those other 2 guys.
Yeah, I agree. I do have a lot of exposure to Dak across my Dynasty portfolio, but I will say this. All of the teams that Dak is on for me are all win now, championship window, playoff contending teams. So in a startup, I would not take him in the 4th. But if you are a championship team, you're a contending team, he's a great player to have for the next 2 to 3 years. But I agree with you, a 26-year-old Brock Purdy probably has close to just as high a ceiling as a 32-year-old Dak. So I'm going to stay with the quarterback position here, and I am going to talk about Bo Nix as my worst value here in round 4. Again, this is Superflex, which is why you might be watching this video or listening and saying, why is Bo Nix going in the 4th round? It's not a single quarterback format. I understand why people like Bo Nix. I get the appeal. Sean Payton, high-powered offense, had a great rookie season. Here's why I'm never out, right? Everyone has their price, but here's why I don't think he's a good value in the 4th. I watched a lot. I'm a West Coast guy. I'm a Niners fan. I watch a lot of West Coast games, obviously. I saw so much inconsistent play from Bo Nix last season. At times, the offense looked boring, slow. They couldn't score. They couldn't move the ball, stuck in the mud, whatever sort of a phrase you want to use. My challenge is I don't know that Jalen Waddle really makes the Broncos that much better. I think he makes them better, but I don't think he pushes them over the top. He's got his own injury history. He plays a quarter of a game and then misses a quarter of the game and then comes back. Like, that's the Jalen Waddle experience. And while I like him as a player and I think he's going to be helpful, I don't know that he really elevates Bo Nix to a top 5, top 7 quarterback. And that's kind of what you're looking for if you're going to spend a 4th rounder on a quarterback in a super flex league, is somebody that can realistically finish top 7 at the position. Because at the end of the day, like, sure, top 12 is great. That's what we want. But Brock Purdy can get you that. Dak Prescott can get you that. Jordan Love could get you that. There's a world, Kendall, I think you and I would agree, where we talk about this every year. There's outliers at the position. I don't think that this could happen, but there's a world where Jared Goff outperforms Bo Nix and has. And you can get him 3 rounds later. And in this 4th round, we just talked about Kenneth Walker, right? We've talked about Devonta Smith. Ladd McConkey's in this 4th round. Carnell Tate, the highest wide receiver, the number 3 overall pick, the wide receiver 1 out of this rookie class. I know a lot of people are excited for what he can do in Tennessee. I would rather have a skill position guy than a quarterback like Bo Nix in this 4th round. So unless I know for a fact that Bo Nix is going to give me 400 on the ground rushing and at least 35 passing touchdowns, and of course you can't project that, or you can't know that for sure, it's a projection, I think I'm pivoting at the position, especially in the first part of the 4th. It's just not the pick that I'm going to make. So,
I'm not going to complain about a little anti Bo Nix. I mean, I'll just give you my 2 cents, honestly, because I saw him in the show doc and I wanted to put some quotes in there. I really think he's just a more expensive Tyler Shuck, like a much more expensive Tyler Shuck. And CJ Stroud is one comeback season away from being a better pick than him too, in a lot of ways too. So I think Bo Nix is pretty expensive where you're drafting him. So I love that take.
Let's move to the 5th. And in the 5th round, based on 7 different sites worth of ADP, Luther Burden starts us off at the 501. Jordan Tyson, Breece Hall, Arthur Juwan, A.J. Brown, Zay Flowers, Rome Odunze. Interesting, Kendall, to see Burden still consistently going ahead of Odunze.
Yeah,
we'll get to that later.
Too, I think all 4.
And best ball, especially in best ball. They are much closer in best ball. They're back-to-back. I mean, 5 picks here is not a big deal. But Rome Odunze in the middle of the round, Travion Henderson, Christian McCaffrey, running back round, Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, Kinshawn Judkins, Harold Fannin, and Bucky Irving to close out the 5th. Give us, Kendall, your best value here in round 5.
You just alluded to it. I'm a massive Rome fan. I think he's such a good prospect. I think he was a little bit banged up. He had a similar issue to like BTJ last year where he was a little bit injured and there were a lot of good options on the team. We were the number 1 rushing team in the NFL for a good period. So we didn't honestly need to pass the ball all that much or all that successfully for portions of last year as well. This is not an anti-Luther Burden take. It's just when healthy as a rookie, like everyone talked about in training camp, like Rome is the guy. He is making highlight plays. He's Caleb's best friend in every 7-on-7 and he was the guy right away immediately. And for me, that's pretty indicative of, oh, you're nice like that right away in training camp. Veterans are like, yeah, no, he's the stone cold goods. So when something happens to that, my first thought isn't, oh, that was a fluke. I guess every other NFL player he was playing against was just taking the day off when he was awesome. I don't think that's the case because those games all mattered. And look, it's going to be a target funnel offense. I love Colston Loveland, but I think Luther Burden is not a guy that's just going to be open on every play. I think he's going to have some stuff. Not that he can't get open, but I think when he's not the guy you're going to force a target to, where Rome is. And he's definitely the red zone weapon too. We saw that Ben Johnson likes to have a deeper ADOT. When you saw some of the schemes they were running, Rome's just always down the field. And if a wide receiver is going to have some variance to the offense from time to time, make sure he's getting the ball at least 20 air yards down the field. So I think Rome is a shoe-in for 8 to 10 touchdowns in a high-powered offense in the NFC North where you kind of have to put up points. And we lost a bunch of targets. So vacated targets are a huge deal in a backfield where our best pass catcher is DeAndre Swift. And I mean, that was his pedigree coming into the NFL, but it really hasn't been his MO since the Detroit years, right? So with that said, we got to pass the ball to somebody. And Rome's going to get a lot of valuable targets. I think he belongs a round up, so give me Rome.
I agree. I'm going to go the other side. I'm going to go with my worst value here in the 5th round, and it is a soon-to-be 29-year-old receiver, which seems weird to say because you still think of him as a guy that's, I won't say in his prime, but a guy that is still a shoe-in top 24 wide receiver. It's Arthur Juwan. It's A.J. Brown. Number one, the age cliff is coming. Number two, Kendall, you and I have talked about this a lot. I don't think that this deal to the Patriots is done. I don't think it's set in stone. I know we've all seen it. We've all read it, but the rumors now coming out that the Jaguars could sneak in and be a team. I've been saying it for weeks. I think the Dolphins are a sneaky team. They have absolutely no wide
thing plus AJ Brown is not drama, right? And you add that on top of what you have going on there. That's a lot of stuff to deal with.
It's just trending in a direction that says, if it's not the Patriots with Drake May, are you excited by the landing spot? Because because the rumors now are that Jacksonville could be in the mix. Okay. So you're telling me now that
at the end of the year, they're always going to be in the mix for everybody.
They're always in the mix for everybody. But so you're telling me, I mean, I don't know what they have capital wise. Like they'd have to give something up. Like who are you giving up that's going the other way? Like is BTJ going to the Eagles? My point is that I just don't believe AJ Brown to the Patriots is a done deal. And even if he is, it's still a 29-year-old wide receiver. And in this round, with 7 averages of ADP, Luther Burden coming off of a very strong last 6 weeks of the season, building into, like you just mentioned, vacated targets. Jordan Tyson, the number 2 receiver in this class. Zay Flowers, who I know we don't love Zay Flowers, but if you started, receiver heavy and you want to get Zay Flowers as your wide receiver 3, I'm fine with that in the 5th round. I'm okay with that. It's not something I really want to do, but I understand why people would. And then you've got some running backs in this round that we like with Travion Henderson, Brees, Kinshawn Judkins. This is a strong round worth of value. If you are in a traditional snake style startup, I might consider trading down from the 2nd or 3rd round if I could get, a 5th round plus a 1st next year, a 5th plus a 2nd or a 2nd and a 3rd, because there's some really good value in here in this 5th round. So I struggle with AJ Brown because of the age. I struggle because the landing spot is unknown, and I just don't love, putting a 29, soon to be 29-year-old receiver into my team, most likely as your wide receiver 2. In this round, give me almost any of these other receivers as my wide receiver 2, and give me 6 to 7 extra years of youth with probably, I would argue, with probably the exact same ceiling, if not higher.
Yeah, there's guys that are like in the next round significantly more than him. So, guys, we gotta have flexibility in startups. You just want flexibility.
Since you went positive, unfortunately, I went negative. We're gonna go negative again. Give me your worst of round 5, and I'm curious to see what you got to say on this one.
Yeah, it's Saquon. It's pretty simple. It's the inflexibility. It's even if he's great, like tell me he smashes. Problem is when you draft, this is startup strategy. So if you take a Saquon, you kind of have to lean towards win now. You're either drafting to trade, but the dynasty community in particular has been hypercritical about aging running backs. The value just isn't there. Even Jonathan Taylor, when he was having his phenomenal, first half of last year, his value in the trade market wasn't what I would have expected it to be. And you're just seeing that everyone is hyper valuing the age of these young, flashy running backs that are producing right away. You're just not going to get the value that you want from a Saquon anymore in the market, in my opinion. even though everyone's still trying to keep it. I've seen Derrick Henry still trying to go for first. Maybe we'll talk about that later on. But it just has to do with, I think he's on a great offense, and I think he's going to be a top 10 running back. But I want flexibility here. I want to draft for the future. And this is the exact same round where I can draft a 22-year-old Quinshon Judkins, right? Or a 22, 23-year-old Travion Henderson, right? So we're talking 6-7 years on good offenses. And I just don't know what Saquon is still doing here. All these aging players, you're going to see a theme here. I'm not a big fan of. You just don't know what your team's going to look like, and you don't know who's healthy come week one. We haven't gotten to training camp yet. So without knowing what my team is and looks like, and the league makeup, who has a super team, who doesn't, who trades all their first and is unbeatable, I don't want the inflexibility of Saquon. Even if you pencil him as a top 5 running back this year, I still think he's the worst pick in this draft.
I understand the appeal. I understand the name value, and I understand the win now mentality. I agree with everything you just said. The one thing you didn't mention that I talked about a lot as Howie Roseman. He's going to get younger. He did it this draft. A.J. Brown is leaving. If he doesn't leave this year, he's gone next year. You don't draft Mekhi Lemon and then shelve him. I wouldn't be surprised if Saquon's replacement is drafted next year. I wouldn't be surprised if Jalen Hurts' replacement is drafted or traded for next year, or Jalen Hurts is traded next year, especially if this offense struggles again this season. So I don't want to build around Saquon. It's hard for me. It's just hard for me. So I'm going to talk about a player you just mentioned as my best value, and it's Quinshon Judkins going a pick later, which probably, to be fair, it should be a couple picks earlier. Again, this is an average of 7 different sites, so you might have been on a site and be like, there's no way Quinshon Judkins is going after Saquon and CMC. Sure, on a certain site it's not, but we took the industry averages to create this data. I'm really in on Judkins this season. I really like the concept that Todd Monken is going to try to recreate a running game that he had in Baltimore. You cannot recreate a Derrick Henry. That's not what Judkins is. But Judkins is a good player. Dylan Sampson is a good player. Judkins is clearly the guy. There's 2 reasons I'm in on Judkins. Number 1, I do not trust a Browns quarterback at all. I don't even know who the quarterback is going to be. The best chance that this team has to score points is going to be on the ground through Judkins. I like Fannin. I like Concepcion. I really wish he had not gone to the Browns, but it is what it is. And you know what? Maybe we're singing a different tune in 12 months if the Browns take a quarterback next year or they trade for somebody. So there's a lot that can happen there. But I think Judkins is a player that you saw great games from last year when he got 20-plus touches. It was almost every single time 100-plus yards with a touchdown. Some he had some 70, 80 yards. But if you're telling me that if he's going to get 20 touches and that return on those 20 touches for my fantasy team in terms of points is going to be a floor of 70 and a ceiling of 120 with a touchdown mixed in there, that's 19 points. So you just can't replicate that in the 5th round. I mean, like, sure, Christian McCaffrey's there, but you can't but Christian McCaffrey's 30 years old. Saquon Barkley, sure, for this season, he might be able to replicate that. But again, what happens next? We just talked about, he might be having his replacement drafted the next year, definitely in the next 2. There's not great wide receivers in Cleveland. The quarterbacks are a disaster. The offensive line's pretty good, and the defense is good. So at the end of the day, if the defense can keep you, I know you want a high-powered offense in fantasy with a poor defense. I think actually a good defense helps Judkins because there's times when they might need to just grind out some yards and kick that last-second field goal to win a game versus having to play, in a shootout, and then Judkins is kind of fades away because they're chucking it down the field every time. So give me Quinshon Judkins at the, I'll call it middle, even though he's at the back of the 5th in this particular ADP set. But I would still take him in the middle of the 5th and feel great about that, especially if he is my RB2. Let's finish this video with the 6th round here, Kendall, and we start at the top of the round with Marvin Harrison Jr., Tucker Kraft, Jamison Williams, Travis. I'm going to say Etienne because I hate calling him Travis Etienne Jr.
Yeah,
I know that's what he wants to be called, but for the purposes of this video, to not confuse people, I am going to refer to him as Etienne. I
We have
apologize
really
to his mother.
bad nicknames for these players. We're not exactly being the kindest people when we analyze
No.
them from we're playing fantasy football, so this is your fantasy name. All right.
There it is. Kyron Williams at the 605, Mekhi Lemon, Jalen Waddle, BTJ, Josh Jacobs, Jadarian Price, DJ Moore, and Sam Laporta round out the 6th round. Kendall, let's end on a positive note. So why don't you start with your worst value pick here in round 6?
Yeah, this was a kind of an easy one for me. It pains me. I think he's going to have a good year. But DJ Moore at 29, again, continuing with the theme of I want flexibility in the first 10 rounds. I want the ability to move and shake. I want the ability to still make those decisions in year 2 and not be forced into something. And the overall data when wide receivers change teams historically isn't that good. Now, we had some recent examples the last 2-3 years where things did go pretty well. I think Hopkins was the first one I remember that like it went good, and actually a lot of us didn't think it would. But I think this is a situation where you're going to a team that does like to spread the ball around. There's a lot of goal line touches that are taken up by Josh Allen himself. And I just don't know that at 29, DJ Moore still has the same pop as some of the other guys in that room. Now, he is the best wide receiver in that room, and I do think he'll have an attitude change, and he'll kind of come with it. But I think you saw in a Ben Johnson-led offense, he was having to manufacture touches for a player that I've never had to seen manufactured touches before. I mean, I remember being a DJ Moore fan, watching him on the Panthers, and just being a great wide receiver, having this great ability to track the ball with a deep A-dot, good air yards. And I haven't seen that. I just really haven't seen that in a while. I've seen a guy that I think his attitude's getting there because his play can't quite back it up to the same level. And in the NFL, I think when you can't create the same separation anymore, that we don't like players that can't create separation anymore. And if he's just 5% worse than what he was, I don't think he's going to do the thing that Josh Allen needs him to. So the Vegas line, if you look at what Vegas says about his totals this year, it's not super great. I think they have him penciled in for under 800 receiving yards in terms of the Vegas line. So I know that's baking in, potential injury risk and other things like that, but Vegas says he's going to be a role player, not an alpha wide receiver 1, and I tend to bet on them versus against them. So I'm going to fade DJ Moore at 29 and going to a new team.
Yeah, DJ Moore, I called him DJ. Speaking of nicknames, I called him DJ4 for many years because that was the amount of touchdowns that he would always score. Yes, I agree with you. My worst of round 6 is Josh Jacobs, and I say this with an asterisk. Josh Jacobs is awesome for this season. Josh Jacobs is the focal point of that offense because there is no alpha wide receiver. But he's getting older, and at some point, I think the Packers, again, will, similar to the take we just said about Saquon, they're going to have to bring in somebody competent because Marshawn Lloyd and friends are not the answer. Josh Jacobs is not Derrick Henry. And I think that's the caveat. It's like, okay, well, he's older. He's still got a couple years on this. I think he has a year left on this contract. And, he's the goal line. He's everything you want in a running back. He's the goal line guy. He's a 3-down back. There is no competition. Like, it's perfect. The problem is that I don't see a world where he can finish inside the top 5 as his ceiling. I don't really see a world outside of crazy outlier touchdowns, or we don't say it on this show, but certain running backs we project to have better seasons being unavailable, where he can finish in the top 7. So you're talking about a guy that's a back half RB1 who has his own injury history on a team that is very balanced, but at the end of the day, I'm not a Jadarian Price guy personally, but if I have to draft a running back in this round and I'm strictly going for youth, I understand a world where Jadarian Price could be considered a better pick or a value pick if you believe in Jadarian Price and if you see the path. Personally, if I'm taking a running back in this round, I'm taking either Kyron or Etienne. We talked in the green room. I won't ruin it for my next take, but that's one of the 2 guys that I would take.
We got to get to that.
Yeah, we got to get to that one. But again, and I'm not being an ageist. But we're talking about dynasty. We're not talking about redraft. In redraft, in the 6th round is my RB2. Absolutely give me Josh Jacobs.
Yeah.
No questions asked. But in a dynasty where I've got to play for the next 2 to 3 years, my two biggest concerns are, number one, does his role diminish if they do bring in someone to spell him next year and they have a more competent backup? Number two, is it going to be the age cliff, and are you stuck holding the bag? What is Josh Jacobs' trade value? I think if you have Josh Jacobs on a roster right now and you are not a win now team, I would wait for this first month of the season, hope he pops, and that's when I would sell. That's what I would do. So let's finish the show on a positive note, and I will let you go first. Give us your best value in this round, and I will preface it by saying I love it.
Yeah, me and you are both becoming honorable Philadelphia Eagles fantasy fans.
Yeah, the keyword is fantasy, because as a Niners fan, I will never be an Eagles fan. But yes,
I'll give you one better too. We're fans of the business. They run a really nice shop over there.
They
How
do a great
you
job.
doing? All right over there.
Howie's the best. Howie's the best GM.
Oh, dude, I would, of all the people I'd love to have a drink with, in the NFL. He's up there. He's somebody I think you could actually we could talk fantasy versus what he does and have a good time with it. I don't know if he would or not, but I freaking want to. It's Mekhi Lemon. Look, we gave him the Amon-Ra St. Brown clone archetype kind of moniker in the the prospecting process, and he goes to a role where he can do that role extremely well on a team that's about to have 1 billion vacated targets. Me, I love Stowers. We'll get to him in upcoming videos, maybe, I hope, but he's probably a year away. Good Lord, if Saquon ever gets injured too, I don't think anybody's talking about, how quickly they could become the Arizona Cardinals if Saquon gets banged up. They would have to, either Hurts would be the QB1 overnight rushing a bunch, or Mekhi Lemon would actually just take over Amon-Ra and be right behind him at wide receiver 4. There's a path to just 2 billion targets. And I think he's going to do well with it. You saw his press conference where he was a little bit weird. I kind of like that. That type of weird. I don't want Puka weird, but I like the George Pickens weird isn't always terrible sometimes, all right? Just being a little out there makes a little bit of sense. Tyreek weird is really good up until he was just done with football. So I'm pretty into it. I think he's going to immediately walk into 100 targets, 80 catches. I don't know if the touchdowns are going to be there, but PPR, just fire him up. And a team that hasn't had an offense working in a while, if he starts working, they have no reason not to say, yep, that's the answer. That's what we're going to do. That's what Detroit did with Amon-Ra. All of a sudden, he was better than expected. The coach liked him. If that clicks early, we kind of talk about roles in all of fantasy, really. And if you can lock down a role early, that's where the dynasty community is like, yep, that's why with Gibbs and Bijan, we're like, yeah, easily top 5 picks. Their role is indestructible for the next infinite amount of years. And I think Mekhi Lemon can do that. Notable, he's a younger prospect too. So if he's this good at that age, we're talking about a real world beater. I think he could be a wide receiver 1 in Dynasty and a top 3 round pick next year, similar to where a Tet McMillan is right now on this board.
I will say this to add one small caveat to, not even a caveat, but one cherry on top. I actually feel like Lemon to Philly is better than Lemon to the Rams. I wasn't, obviously we were all excited. We were shocked by the Ty Simpson pick. I think the excitement when the Rams went on the clock at 13 and Lemon was on the board was like, oh, it's going to happen. Here we go. This is Devontae's replacement. It's so obvious. And then it doesn't happen. And then you start to say, I know you and I talked about this. Oh shit. Is it going to be the Browns? Because it's the one place we were like, please don't ruin someone for us. And I love Concepcion, but I actually think Concepcion can succeed there. We are going to do another video with rounds 7, 8, and 9, so we will get to Concepcion in the next video. But I think Lemon to the Eagles gives him immediate year 1 value, whereas I think his ceiling would be so much lower had he gone to the Rams here in year 1. So love it.
Share issues, yeah.
Yeah, let's get on with it. I will admit that I didn't chicken out, but I have a take here on 2 players as my best of round 6. My true best of round 6 value is actually technically my honorable mention, but I wanted to take the risk here, Kendall. I think BTJ is being left for dead. And in the 6th round, he is my best value because the ceiling is there and we've seen it. We've seen it. We've seen a top 5 season from this player with this quarterback in this team in an offense that technically wasn't as good as it is now. And you know me, I have nailed the last 2 years of Jaguars takes. So
Yeah, you can't miss with the Jags, dude.
and I don't even like the Jaguars, but
I
I
think
have
that's
just
why you're good at taking them. You're like, if I like a player on their team, I hate that I like them, and I'll find every reason not to like them. And you
yeah.
just run out of reasons at some point. So yeah, I'm with you on that.
I think the ceiling for BTJ is a wide receiver one. It is a top 5 finish, and I say that not of a Luther Burden projection, because the fact that Luther Burden is going over Rome in round 5 to me is a little bit criminal. It's a projection, and I like that we want to see a year 2 leap, but we've never seen it from Luther Burden. Could it happen? Absolutely. Is it in the range of outcomes? 100%. But we have seen it from BTJ. We have seen Trevor Lawrence take a step forward. I thought Trevor Lawrence looked, I won't say great. I think he looked good last year. I think he looked
They look
good.
looser. He was willing to chuck it a little bit.
He that's why I say good, not great. He looked good. He looked improved. Improved is the best that I can say. And I, feel like it's taken a really long time since he was a number 1 pick, and it feels like he was a number 1 pick like 10 years ago, even though I think he's only in year 5. I don't have to check myself on that. But BTJ should be the alpha in this team. And I say that because I like Parker Washington. I like Jacoby Myers. Travis Hunter's going to play defense. He's going to play on both sides of the ball. So you're telling me that you have a player in Brian Thomas Jr. who has been an alpha, who has been your wide receiver 1, who has been a top 5 guy, and you could potentially get him as your wide receiver 3 in round 6 or even as a flex? I understand the risk. I get it. We could see I won't call it a bust, but we could see a bomb out of him this year. And then you really have to wonder, is it, it's not over, but like, is it going to be another year or 2 before we see a resurgence? Do we ever see a resurgence? But that's why he's a value. You don't become a value because you're a sure thing. You don't become a value if you're Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase is the top of the league. That's not a value. So to me, it's like you have to see the outcome as like we talk on the show all the time about presumption of health. You have to see the presumption of the ceiling outcome versus the floor outcome. Kendall, why do players get scared off of Christian McCaffrey?
Glass, man.
Because he can miss the entire season. But if you get Christian McCaffrey, like you did last year, he can be and will be the overall RB1. There is not a world where BTJ can be the overall wide receiver 1. But in the 6th round, to have a guy that can be a top 12 guy and finish inside the top 6, give me that all day. My honorable mention, who I would take from a safety perspective, is Travis Etienne. Travis Achane Jr. Sorry, I'm going to call him Etienne because I don't want people to watch this video and think we're talking about Devon Achane in the 6th round. Etienne's growing on me. We talked about this backstage. You've got a 40-year-old, 50-year-old Alvin Kamara who's just not the same. There's really no other running backs. They've clearly upgraded the wide receiver room with Jordan Tyson. I think with this contract, you're going to get 2 good years out of Achane for sure. Etienne. I'm going to call him Travis. Let's just go with that.
I know
Travis
you bring it up once,
but I did it right because that's what he wants to be called. That's what he wants to be called. So, Mr. Travis for the Saints. You're going to get 2 years for sure out of this contract. And then I think in year 3, you'll need to make a decision because of the age, if you want to keep him and you think you can get a 3rd year, or if you think it's better to sell a year early. Time will tell on that. But you and I think both agree. We like Shuck. We like the offense. I'm not going to say easy, but it is a winnable division. And I do think the Saints can win this division, which means if they do, they're picking in the 20s next year. Which means they're probably not taking another running back. If they do take an off of that, you and I think would both agree they're going to take a defensive player. But if they do take an offensive guy, it's probably a tight end to replace Juwan Johnson, or it's a lineman or a guard, something to that effect to kind of bolster the offense around Shuck. But give me Travis Achane Jr., Travis Etienne, in a 2 to 3 year dynasty window because of the contract, because of a lack of competition in an offense that we like. And if they do well this year, they're probably not drafting his replacement. They might be trading for somebody, but it's not going to be somebody with the money that they've put into this position. He catches passes. He's obviously going to be the guy. So to me, I think he's a screaming value in round 6 as your RB2 because I do think he has RB1 top 12 upside, especially this season here with Shuck. And if it takes the step forward, Shuck, then I think he's probably a pencil of a top 12 guy next year, maybe even close to a pen. So give me Travis Etienne Jr. at the 6th round. That's going to do it for this video. Kendall and I are going to make another one. We're going to go through the whole draft, but here in the next segment, we will go through rounds 7, 8, and 9. So stay tuned for that. We will have that recorded and up on YouTube quite soon. For all of us here at the Fantasy Football Network, this has been another episode of our show, The Extra Point. Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to getting some more questions from you on best values and worst values for some upcoming videos. We out.